Name of the song, Born to Survive. A good selection. So sit back, relax, and let us bring on stage Winston Peters, better known as Gypsy.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah. What can be worse than a 10-year-old on the cold beach of my arrow? With just the surf and the sand, a dream and a plan, and no promise of tomorrow. Hungry belly cry, trouble wave bye-bye. And at that age, you think life is cold. But there is no way to know, cause it never would show. It's all for this dungeon called the world. But I'm a born survivor. Yes, I can smile through all my adversities and just laugh when the guns are trained at me, taking life one day at a time. Cause I'm sure as the night must bring the dawn, this life of mine would still go on. And don't mind how they connive, spin their web of strife, I'm staying alive. I'm born to survive. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There have been times gone by when I watch mama cry and I know daddy hurt inside. Though he worked like a man, did all that he can, but somehow he just couldn't provide all the things that we need, but somehow we succeed, and those were real trying times indeed. But then I couldn't understand that that was part of the plan that would make me a much stronger man. I'm just a born survivor. Yes, I can smile through all my adversities and just laugh when the guns are trained at me, cause I'm taking life one day at a time. Cause I'm sure as the night must bring the dawn, this life of mine would still go on. And don't mind how they connive, spin their web of strife, I'm staying alive. Watch me, I'm just born to survive. Oh yes. Oh yeah. Yes, I've worked to the bone, felt so all alone in places I didn't know too well. Abuse and misuse, that was nothing I chose. Sure, those conditions felt like hell. But hard work do pay, now things are not that way. But success do breeds envy indeed. And although I've done no wrong, you should hear evil tongue working with envy to bring me down. Go on, I'm just a born survivor. Yes, I can smile through all my adversities. Brother, I laugh when your guns are trained at me, cause I'm taking my life one day at a time. Cause I'm sure as the night must bring the dawn, this life of mine will still go on. And don't mind how they connive, spin their web of strife, I'm just staying alive. I was born to survive. Yes. Yes, I cannot hide. It hurts down inside cause there's blood running through my veins. And when the things people say sure gets in your way and there's no truth, it causes you pain. And when the good that you do just never shine through, you wear a smile and you do some more. Cause although hate knows no bound, but love makes you strong, and for your good, your reward is sure. And I'm a born survivor now. I can smile through all my adversities. I'll just laugh when the guns are trained at me. I'm taking my life one day at a time. Cause I'm sure as the night is going to bring the dawn, this life of mine would still go on. Don't mind how they connive, spin their web of strife. I'm staying alive. I was born to survive. Yes, I was born. Said I was born to survive. Yes, I was born. I was born to survive. Yes, I was born. Said I was born to survive. Yes, I was born. I was born to survive.
Roy Winston Gypsy Peters, Born to Survive. Born to Survive. Born to Survive. Quite an appropriate calypso for us as we move into the Christmas period. We are there already, but Born to Survive. That's our story. That's our story. All of us, some of us came out of the dungeons, came out of the ghetto, whatever we call it. It is just that some of us came out a little bit earlier than others. But we all come from there. And in many regards, materially, we may not be there, but psychologically, we still continue to lend our solidarity to those. Because if those of us who have made it out of the ghetto of third world stagnation and starvation, as David Rudder puts it, that although we have made it out, and if we can reach back there and show our faces, and for some of us more than our faces, we can do something about the survivors. The survivors. Every day, those women in the villages and the townships wake up and they make it happen out of nothing. This Christmas, they're going to make it happen. The aroma from the black cake and the sponge cake, as we call it back in those days. I know you are young people have all kind of fancy name these days for it. And the pepper pot and the garlic pork and everything that comes with Christmas, they're going to turn the almost nothing into something. We are born survivors, born to survive. And for those who underestimate the capacity of our people to survive and overcome, they have something else coming. Good evening to all of you. It's a Friday evening, Friday night, Friday afternoon, but it's Friday. And Friday is a special day on the calendar of West Indians. Always. There's always Saturday night when you gone to the party and you do all the things that we're accustomed to do on Saturday night. But there was always a Friday night before the Saturday night. Payday. Payday. And it's interesting that our people call it payday because it meant so much. And it continues to mean so much. We are fighting the politics of alienation, the politics of starvation, the politics of bad-mindedness, the politics of deception, but we are surviving because we are born to survive. Born to survive. The politics of deception. The president goes one day to the soldiers and says, give you 1 month pay. And they skin their teeth and knock the table. And the next day, he appoints a police commissioner against the will of the Constitution. Joking the eyes of the military, bribing them. But we are going to survive this and live to fight another day. Good evening to all of you. We have lots to talk about tonight. It's Christmas, but it's not always Christmas in our politics because there is no respect for the season. Back in my time, even for those of us who called ourselves revolutionaries, we close up the politics since December 15. Politics done. Today, if we had closed up the politics since December 15, look how much this government would have passed. It's at Christmas time they're seeking to take away Black people land. Christmas time, they're appointing a commissioner who is past the age. Christmas time, they're still trying to use the cash grant to win votes. They have no respect for God, have no respect for Jesus. A scamp is always a scamp. We can't shut the eye. Good evening to all of you. Welcome. Good evening to you, Vibert White, my good friend. I have not said hello to you in a long time. It's not an act of omission, but these days we have so many people to say hello to that we will miss the regulars from time to time. Good evening to you, Daniel King. Welcome to Politics 101. I'd like to say thanks to Ozia for sending his donation. Ozia is one of the originals. Thank you, Ozia, for your donation. Good evening to you, Dorcas, Vashti, all of you. Welcome to Politics 101 on a Friday night, December 20th. December 20th, we're counting down to Christmas in a couple of days. We will be there. Good night to all of you. Hello to you in Linden. And I have to be careful because I'm a Linden man and he always put me to my place. You know, whenever I meet somebody and they say from Georgetown, I always say, which part of Georgetown? Oh, South Georgia. Which part of South Georgetown? So you have to be very careful to tell people Linden. Because even when I was a little boy, my auntie make a distinction between Mackenzie and Wismar. And then she make a distinction between Wismar and Valley of Tears, where she used to live. And then she make a distinction between Valley of Tears and near to the creek where she used to live. Coldest water ever. Even winter water come cold with that water. Good evening to all of you in Linden, Wismar, Mackenzie, in the ward, back of the wall, Christianborg, good evening to all of you. Good people. Good people. Dr. Adams. I think you might have muted yourself. We're not hearing you.
You hear me now?
We're hearing you now.
Good evening, my brother. Your hand getting tight these days. You don't even call and remind me that it was your birthday a few days ago. Belated happy birthday, my brother. Belated happy birthday.
They had birthday gift, as we would say, birthday present. Al and Milani. So I say, if I call you, I know you're gonna send a big box and me not space. but I clear up the boxes, so there's no place for what you call belated birthday presents.
Belated. May you live to see many more in good health and happiness, my brother.
Thank you. Before the program, we were talking about cricket, and we were bemoaning the fact that commitment seems to be lacking. And you said that more than any other people, given where we come from, our cricketers, our sportsmen and women in general, our academics, our nurses, our teachers, should be the ones who should be more committed, given where we come from. And I already had Gypsies Born to Survive lined up, right? To play. As we start this afternoon, reflect a little bit on the relationship between where we come from and commitment. How does our social origins, how does it amount to commitment, and why it should amount to commitment?
Well, I can only go by my personal experience, and I know of quite a few others like myself. Like, of course, we have spoken. I don't go without speaking about Christianborg, and the folks who are from Christianborg know how we were viewed as the ghettos, if you will, in Linden. We didn't have anything of value except the alleys that we had. No paved roads. We didn't have running water. We didn't have indoor toilets and stuff like that. And in my personal case, my mother couldn't read or write, and there were lots of other folks like that. However, and then the folks on the other side of the river used to look down upon us, never wanted to even come across the river because they thought they would be beaten up and robbed and that type of stuff. So that motivated me more than anything, as Dr. Hines. I just wanted to make sure that it doesn't get, we had a chip on our shoulders. And I can tell you, because look at both Robert Corbin and Aubrey Norton came from Christianborg. As a matter of fact, they live right next to each other. And I'd be willing to guarantee you that they were motivated in the same way, because we have these conversations. And we just wanted to be better than the people on the other side of the river. And so it motivated us because of where we were and how people viewed us. And I think, so that is why I get so frustrated. For example, I know we talked about cricket. We tend to, and then on the other side, even though we born, like you said, we born to survive. When you survive and you succeed and you get to the level, you forget what brought you there. Like they say, what brought you there? So you get now have that platform to do what that village did for you, because you couldn't do it by yourself, Dr. Hine. I can tell you, that same poor village of Christianborg, I could not have survived without them holding my hands. My teachers, I talk about my teachers. I got whipped one time by teacher Paris, Hector Paris, whipped for bringing third place in class. But I didn't understand it then. So, when those are the people that raised us and brought us where we are. But so when we get here, we should be the one that is taking up the mantra to do what we're doing. But when we get there, a lot of us tend to forget where we came from and become selfish, if you will. And and we think about ourselves. But we should be the one who is, you know, taking the fight, if you will, because right now, Dr. Hines, to put it into perspective in our time, I mean, we talk about born to survive, but right now it's really testing that resolve in Guyana. It's a test of that resolve of being born to survive with everything else. But we can't give up. It's people like me, myself, and you, and all the others who are at the forefront here. We can't give up, or else those who are depending upon us, we've got to keep that. We have to keep that hope alive. But we should be like getting back to your point, we should be the one who are most motivated. I mean, if you look back to our foreparents, Dr. Hines, those slave rebellions, it could not have been. I mean, they were in worse situation than we are. They weren't fighting for themselves, by the way. They were not rebelling because they want to free themselves. It was bigger than them, and that's the thinking that we need to have. We need to think about more of a community rather than our personal, or personal self. And I think that's what's missing a lot of times in our community.
That's what's missing a lot of times in our community. Good evening to one of your countrywomen, Denise Jonas Robertson. Denise is one of the luckiest people in the world. She was born in Buxton and raised in Linden. You cannot get them better than that. And Denise is one of my cousins here in Arizona, and she is saying belated happy birthday. They didn't forget, but they were in Jamaica. I heard it through the grapevine, Denise.
like they got a lot of Guyanese in Arizona, boy. Like I got to come and take a trip up there.
Yeah, we have a tight group here. We have a very very tight group here, and I heard through the grapevine that they've been way to Jamaica. They didn't call me and tell me, well, Professor, he's going Jamaica. But I heard it through the grapevine. Denise, that you all been to Jamaica, but you must come back. You all must come back. The Jonas family from Linden via Buxton, and they have some Irish in them because the father was from Irish, the mother was from Buxton, and they grew up in Linden. You can't get a better combination
You're
than
not
that.
gonna ask you which part of Linden now. We must ask you which part of Linden.
Yeah, I think there's 1 mile people,
Okay.
I think it's 1 mile. I
Yeah.
think it's 1 mile. I think they was from 1 mile. The house is still there. Whenever I
Yeah.
go. Yes, I think they're 1 mile. She's gonna put them out right if I miss it by a mile, but but I think is 1 mile. Doc. So we now have a commissioner of police, not acting, a real commissioner of police, not acting. But sometimes we look at the outcome and we don't look at the process. Talk to us about this gymnastic here that the government perform on us with this appointment of Hicken as a substantive commissioner of police, a man who is past the retirement age. What is happening there?
Well, we should not be surprised anymore, Dr. Hines. This here has become just the normal behavior. This lawlessness and immoral behavior of this administration has now become it's normal, and they really don't care. Look, I mean, an announcement like this, first of all, they did not even invite the media. Didn't invite any. They did not follow process of even getting the opposition leader integrally involved in the process as called for by the Constitution. So they really don't care about anything that is institutionally driven. We have no institutions right now. And here's a guy it's illegal because he's beyond the age of 55. So they don't care again. And they did not I can't remember the words in the constitution say. I think it's substantial involvement of the leader of the opposition, etc. But then they went ahead and made the decision. And to appoint this guy, besides the illegal part of it, here is a guy who admitted to receiving a whole bunch of money, um, from to host the wedding of Mr. Brutus, who's in hot water. The guy admitted to getting the money, but no investigation. So it's not. I'm not baffled anymore by this, Dr. Hines. It's an expectation because it's normal behavior, and that is why we've got to. But we cannot keep it. We got to let people understand what is going on here, and hopefully they would not look at what's on the surface and what's being peddled on the daily basis as propaganda coming from these people. But this here is normal stuff. It might be shocking to most people because this is not how a normal country behaves. So the only thing that we can do is to get them out of office. And of course, that's also a big challenge. But in order to get them out of office, we've got to let the people understand what is going on. And I'm sure most people, I don't care whether you're Indian, Black, Portuguese, Chinese, Amerindian, nobody likes to, nobody's going to support anything that is wrong and immoral and illegal. But we have got to let them understand, what they're doing here is characteristic of those things, Dr. Hines. So it's, even though it might be shocking, but it's not a surprise. This is modus operandi for these fellas.
Doc, they announced 5 deputy commissioners, 4 of whom have all but pledged loyalty to the PPP. They are considered by insiders and outsiders to be
Sure.
PPP people. Um, uh, 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 what is the political subtext there? First of all, in regularizing Hicken, who is over 55 and who's not likely to be in that position for very long. Is it the real issue here is laying the groundwork for another commissioner who is going to do their bidding?
Absolutely, absolutely. That we know that that's the case. This is Kikin is gonna get his reward. And this reward is as a commission. And I don't know what the package is, but I'd be willing to guarantee you a retired commissioner has got a hefty package, compared to if he was just an acting commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we know what this is, Dr. Hines. We know what this is, okay? Um, it's always been, a kind of an outcry, about the police force and the military as to the kind of people that they're made up of, which is basically African Americans. And that did not come by they try to a lot of times try to say, well, okay, it's the PNC. This had nothing to do with the PNC. It's history that you know more than everybody else, as to when slavery was abolished and all that type of stuff. The indentured servants went to in the estate, and the black folks moved to this to the cities. So, but that's how things evolve. But now, they're trying to change the face of the armed forces, the military and the police force. I mean, there's no question. And I have no problems with diversity, Dr. Hines, but you need to do it in a manner that is fair and have competent people, not just rewarding people and having these people. You give them a position because they're going to be loyal members of your party and of your government. That's not the way that you do things, and expect to have a competent and fair and viable police force or military. So, But that, I mean, it's open, Dr. Hines, and that's what this is all about, is to reward these folks for their loyalty to the government. Everybody that they have been appointing. I mean, even in contrast, look at the people who've been getting contracts. Still, you don't have to go too far. It has nothing to do with competence anymore. It's about who your only requirement and qualification these days is to be a loyal member of the party. So that's what it is.
Be a loyal member of the party. Good evening, Marlon Thomas. Evan, good evening. Good evening, Marcia Jackman. All of you, Lynette Ferrier, good evening to all of you. Asha, my brother from up there in London. Well, not London, it's in England, the United Kingdom. I don't know whether it's in London or not. Perhaps I have to be very careful. Long time you'll go London, you know. We'll be very careful now because our people have moved out of the boroughs and they've gone now into the suburbs and so on, you know. Long time you're gone to London or you're gone to Manchester, you know, to work there in the mines. Good evening, Kirk. Good evening to all of you. Doc, folklore is in the DNA, and I want to be very careful because people think that DNA is not a scientific term. Some people think DNA is a social science term. Genetics and DNA, Jack Dio says racism. So finally, the man let us know that he believes in biological racism. Because if he can take Terence, who said genetic DNA, and he said the man is a racist, so he take a scientific construct and put it on race. Now we know in here, race is biological. That's why he treated black people the way, because biologically, you know, he's such a, oh Lord, he's such a, part of it is being stupid, not trying to figure out what's the meaning of race, because everything is racism come out of the mouth so quickly that he doesn't understand that genetic and race don't go together, because race is not a biological construct, and that by linking genetics and DNA with race, he is being a racist because he's biologizing a social construct called race. Basically saying that when you're born black, it is not a social meaning that people put on your skin color. It's that genetically you are black. And there's no such thing. I don't have to tell you as a scientist. I don't have to tell you that. But Jack Dio is so unschooled and unlearned in what is the difference between social science and natural science, and he's just making himself a jackass. And in the process, a whole set of people who are listening to him, you now understand why he behaves the way he behaves, so that when he talks about public servants not being productive workers, but that cane cutters are productive. And public servants don't make actual goods and services, but cane cutter also don't make actual goods and services. Cane cutter cut cane. They're the same categories of workers. They contribute indirectly to the making of wealth, but they're very important. But he differentiates between one set of workers and said they must get so much money, and the other set, which is in the same category, he said, no, you must get this little bit one because you're not productive. Now we understand what is operating in his head. Because although they're workers, one is of one skin color, the other one is of another skin color, and that he believes that biologically they are like that. You know? Now, this NRF and the money that's taken up from there, and that Terence Campbell has been saying they're taking out this money and they're not accounting for what they're doing with the money. What is wrong with that, doctor?
What is wrong with it is that they're trying to cover their scheme. So they come out, like the president comes out on Wednesday morning. That was
Friday
another
morning.
5 o'clock
Friday morning.
for the morning.
Yeah.
That I guess that's when, I don't know if that's when his bumps raise, or what happens at that time, but he comes out. But that was, even that timing was not by accident. Remember what was going to be on the news later on in the day, Dr. Hines? You know what was going to be on the news? What about 10 o'clock in the morning? Parliament to discuss
Land.
the land issue. And then you're going to have protests, and the media is going to cover that. So that was not by accident that he came out there, as far as I'm concerned. Now, there was lots of, and I do not know if I could, whether it's just, um, either it's just ignorance, or just propaganda, as far as NRF is concerned. When I hear, first of all, it was so incoherent. The man pick up, the man here, and it was like a little by doctor, and you're a professor, so you can relate to this probably more than anybody else. But the man pick up some fancy words, and he wouldn't let go of them. He had some he sung so immature and childish, ultra crepidarian, ultra. Yeah, then he had another one, egotistical arrogance and convenience of conscience. His entire speech, over and over, he's mentioned these things, so you can tell that somebody gave him these phrases. Even when Doctor Hans, have you ever spoken and said, bring out a word and said ultra capidarian? That is a word, that is a word. so you've got to convince people that it's a word. But beyond that, he comes out with this, with this. So here's the hypocrisy and the lies. Well, I don't know if it's lies or if it's just sheer ignorance. And it might be a mixture of, because the guy comes out, he says, well, their biggest criticism is that, well, the opposition never had a board. Who the hell cares whether it's a board or committees? It's what the objective is. You remember, Mr. Granger had set up a 22-member team. I don't care whether you call it a committee or it doesn't matter, or a board. But to them, a board means something. He said, well, they didn't have a board. Well, that's that's a stupid comment, but you can tell, his level of intellect and understanding of how you manage any organization. But anyway, so just to remind the folks, Mr. Granger had set up a 22-member team, whether you want to call it a commission, a committee, whatever the heck it is. It covered the entire broad cross section, any demographic in the country. It covered that. So that, to me, that was the best thing that could happen in terms of bringing, everybody had a say in the cross section of the community. They got rid of that. So now the other criticism was, well, too much power was vested in the minister. And this board now has taken away that power from the minister, which is absolute balderdash. You go read their act, and the number of approvals, all of these committees and everything that they set up, including the board, they've got to go back to the minister to get approvals. Approvals is written into that act several times. So that's the nonsense that they're trying to peddle. Then they call this board, they had the nerve to call this board an independent board. And every member of the board is appointed by, guess who? The president. Even further than that, Dr. Hines. When they got rid of and people need to know this. So when they talk about independent board and all this foolishness, here are the facts. When they got rid of the 22-member board, they agreed. There was an agreement with the opposition for the opposition to provide 2 members of that 5-member board. There was a written agreement for them to do that. It so happened that I was one of those, who was asked to represent the opposition on that board. The morning that they met, the opposition with Gil Teixeira and whoever else there was, and not the opposition, their the government represented by Gail Teixeira and whoever else was supporting her. And then you had on the opposition side, I think Kemrad Ramjitan was there, and I can't remember who else. When they submitted my name and the other person's name, they rejected them. They rejected them. And the opposition side walked out of the meeting. And they were happy about that because they went ahead and they appointed, instead of appointing the two opposition people, they went ahead and appointed the two people to fill, the positions. So they were glad. They raised hell. Oh no, Vincent Daniels. No, they come up with all kinds of silly thing, excuses. One of them, well, oh no, he's not a finance person, he's an engineer. So of course, we are prepared. So they brought up my CV. Well, Vince has managed more money than even what you guys manage, far much more in terms of his responsibility, more than what what the government of Ghana as a whole. Our budget is just a fraction of what he used to manage. So they jumped to something else. Well, he's not a lawyer. Well, the person that they put instead of me, it's not a lawyer either. But they just wanted to just stall everything. So anyway, so we walked out to the meeting. They appointed, so all 5 people that they appointed was appointed by the PPP government. So they reneged on their own agreement to allow the opposition to have 2 members. So that's the first thing that they did. And the most important thing that is, so when they talk about this independent board, so we moved from a board or a committee of representation of the entire nation with a 22-member board or committee or whatever it is that Mr. Granger had, to a 5-member team or a board that they're calling, that comprised of only people who are appointed by the president. I know they want to call that an independent board, and then they want to call that, well, all of the authority has been removed from that committee or board. I mean, from the minister to that board. When you read their act, there are approvals all over the place where this board, they still have to go to the minister. So that's the hypocrisy and lies and propaganda that they're spreading. And that's what he did that morning.
That's what he did that morning. Doc, we all followed the teachers' strike, 75 days. And it was one of the bright moments of 2024, if not the brightest moment in 2024. And then as we come to the end of the year, the teachers are in the news again. And they had me boxing my head, boxing the records to find out if a union in recent history has ever suspended their president and vice president for going against the wishes of the union. We want to make it very clear. They didn't suspend them because they negotiate 10%. They suspend them because the union say, do not go there and bring back to us anything less than 30%, I think was the final thing, because the members were prepared to fight to death. And they defy their own members, went and take a 10%. And now the teachers' union has made history by suspending the president and the vice president who did that. Now, you from Linden, so nobody who from Linden can't tell me they know nothing about union. The backside are 2 union. You are 2 union, and everybody there had a family member who was unionized. So you know about union. And you always hear about union bosses who going against the wish of the union, because we always had a situation in Linden where the union would try to please the PNC government because they feel that that is what the people in Linden want. But they didn't understand the people in Linden used to make a differentiation between our political support for the PNC. But when it comes to be bread and butter, is the union representing me, not the PNC. All right? And we are sending the union there to negotiate with the PNC government to bring back bread for we. And when the unions never used to do that, People would give them hell in Linden. That is why I think when you're talking about trade union militancy, you have to go back to Linden. Still, I think in the entire Caribbean, there's not been a space of union militancy like Visma Mackenzie, Linden, whatever we want to call it today, Christianborg, and so on. There's no other place in the English-speaking Caribbean that has that kind of history. And now, 50 years later, 60 years later, we have seen the teachers' union saying to the union bosses, you're representing us. We have heard talk about Mark Light being PPP. That's not my business. I belong to the WPA, you belong to the FC. We all have a right to belong to which party.
Yep. Yep.
But you are going there not to represent the PPP. When you sit at that table, you're representing teachers. And you ought to do what the teachers want you to do. If you fight and you didn't get through, go back to them. But don't take it upon yourself to take crumbs that are given to you from the PPP because you know the PPP buys them and so on. And so the teachers have spoken again. Your thoughts?
Oh, well, of course, I was a little by them times growing up. So you're absolutely correct. Almost every couple of days, they used to just walk out. Just
Let's call it wildcat strikes.
Wildcat. I can't remember when last I heard that. The wildcat strikes. We used to have it all the time, and you were absolutely correct. Londoners, even though they were always, PNC aligned, strongly aligned, they never think about whether it's in the PNC favor or not. Your working conditions not right. They walk out completely. But the teachers, I know that it went down to start with before we get to the suspension. But the teachers are going to go down in history as we go through trying to survive. The whatever the next few years are bringing upon us. The teachers it may appear as if they lost the battle, but they're going to go down as leading the way in what this country turns out. And a good example, in as inadequate and insulting that this 10% is, the sugar workers would not have gotten 10%. They would have gotten that same 6.5%. The PSU would have not gotten that 10.5%. If the teachers had settled for that to begin with, what was it, 6.5%? That's what everybody would have been getting. So, but the sugar workers had to be thanking the teacher. They led the way, even as paltry as the 10% is. So let's start with that. The second thing is, in terms of the leadership and the president, not only from my understanding, because when it was voted upon, and I can't remember what it was in the initial vote to go along with this with the
17-5. Sorry.
Yeah, but what happened there? Apparently, they were misled. They were misled. So when people say, well, they changed their mind, it had nothing to do with based on information. It was about being misled with the information that they got. And then when they realized what had happened afterwards, so now they came back, and that's what's caused the suspension. You can't have leaders. Now, again, that's the information that I have, and there's no reason for me to doubt it. But so that's what it is. And we cannot have leaders because it's the same type of thing we're seeing in this administration here. They're misleading you every single day, Dr. Hines. They're propagandizing and going out there and lying to the people to get their votes. So it's the same, it's the same thing at the lower level. And we cannot tolerate that type of thing if we're gonna build a country that is gonna be worth its moral authority. So that's what's going on here. It's a microcosm, what happened there, of what's going on here with the government every single day. They're lying to the people to get their votes. And apparently, that's what's being alleged. The same thing happened there. And they paid up, they pay the price for it. They're being held accountable. So that is as simple as that.
And I endorse your declaration here that the teachers are the real heroes and think. One other thing that the teachers did, quite apart from the fact that they caused them to raise the percentage from 6.5% to 10%, is that they forced them to engage in some form of collective bargaining.
That's right. That is
with
correct.
the public servants, the PSU. They had to talk to the PSU.
Yep.
And I think that return to collective bargaining is perhaps the greatest victory in all of this, because collective bargaining, as you would know, Dr. Adams, in all of your manifestations, it is the cornerstone of labor relations.
Without question. Without question. Even in government, even in the United States government, some of the strongest unions are, of course, but it's a big difference because in the US we follow the rule of law, but our unions are very strong. The last thing you better not do is to say you're going to retaliate against an employer. As a matter of fact, when you do that, that's exactly what they want you to do because of the rule of law. The government would get in serious trouble, just an appearance of retaliation. So we always try, as executive, you always try to, you bend to make sure it doesn't even appear, because you can't go there. You cannot go there. But there's a rule of law. It's a different place.
There's a rule of law. And Anthony, you're making some comments there about Mr. Light. And I want to disassociate our program from that comment. Mr. Light may have done wrong to his teachers, but he has a right to live. And he does not have a right to any suggestion of violence against him. So your comment that Mr. Light is extremely lucky to be alive, we don't want such comments on our program. We do not pursue or support that kind of politics. We fight against those who would like to take our lives because of our politics. So I know that you may not mean it in that way, but these things, it's not just what you mean, but also the perception of what you mean. And so we would want to disassociate our program from that kind of comment. Mr. Light is a human being. He may make mistakes, but that does not mean that he should not be alive. All right? So we don't want to associate. We leave that kind of politics to those who we are fighting against. Mr. Adams, Dr. Adams, I'm sure you...
yes, absolutely. Yeah. And all, we respect, and the way that we operate, Dr. Hines, is I don't care which party you belong to.
That's right.
I have friends in the PPP, and I know that you have friends in the PPP. I've got friends in all walks of life. And, you got to respect their opinion, because, what you want for yourself is exactly what you're supposed to do for others. So no, it has nothing to do with Dr. Light. As a matter of fact, Dr. Light was out there on the picket, on the lines with the teachers. So this is not a case. And this whole thing about him belonging to a party, I mean, that should not even be...
That's his business. It's his right.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't care. But, if the issue comes down to, even if he has, and like you said, Dr. Hines, in Linden, we had similar situations where the leadership may believe one thing, but the workers say, none of that, we're going to walk anyway. And like I said before, Dr. Light, when this all played out, when in the first vote to go along, there's allegations that they were misled, or they might have even, Dr. Light might even say that there was a miscommunication.
That's right.
So if there was a disconnect, or the miscommunication disconnect, okay, well, they're probably going to sort it out later. But no, it has nothing to do with holding him as being anybody different or disparaging him. That should never be the intent, and especially, just suggesting anything in the form of violence. No, we're not going to be part of that. We condemn any such thoughts and suggestions.
And Ian, Anthony, we can go with what Ian is saying. Ian said, "Good evening, Dr. Hines, Mr. Light and Bright." I like that. I like that. We can take that and run with it. No, we want to eschew any hint of violence on this program. We know how frustrated people are, and we know that sometimes we say things in an artful way. But like I said, perception can become reality after a period of time. Um, and so we just want you to temper. And Evan, please do not come and interfere with people and push people to make these kinds of comments, because you're going to be part of the problem. All right, Doc. I see you've been taking them on. I pick up the paper last night. I just read the paper thing. I read Kaito first, and then I read Stabrook after. And I noticed in both newspapers you were the star in the letter section. What is it you were? And then you were the lead story in Kaito News. So you're a big buy today. All over.
Well, as you know, we, like you said, we cannot sit back and tolerate the disinformation and lies that are being peddled by this government. Now, here it is, an agency, the EPA, that is supposed to be trustworthy to the people, Dr. Hines. I remember when I was at the EPA, the man at the head man at Exxon, Rod Henson, not Rutledge. Rutledge is of a different character coming from. That was another word that Ali has
Ali
picked up
used hold on from the
on. But anyway,
well, people used to say when you had empty, people can pack anything inside. You can pack anything inside. It's whether you can deliver when it packed. Anyhow, I had to bring in a little focus.
But Rod Henson, great human being, one of the toughest people that I've ever found, but the guy was a decent human being. He looked after Exxon's interest, but he respected the government of Guyana's interest. And he and I had a superb relationship, even though we were tough with each other. He respected where we were coming from. And the one rule that I had laid down, that we will not accept anything less than what they've got to abide with in the United States. And he told me absolutely. He told me absolutely. So here we are. The EPA came out. I think it was last week or the week before, when I did an interview and with the Kaito News. So the Kaito News carried the article, and the article was about Jagdio still telling people, even though he was educated many times in the past, he was still coming up with this foolishness that in terms of the parent company guarantee, every time it comes up, well, we can sell the assets like the ship, the FPSOs and all the other assets to pay for an oil spill. And I went after it, and the whole article was about saying that this is nonsense. Those assets belong to us. It's nonsense to be talking about reselling our own assets to pay for an oil spill. So don't stop that foolishness. So the EPA now comes out, and I don't know if their boss Jagdio tell them, well, you got to do something, you got to say something. Well, they come out now, and apparently, they got a whole lot of little people, young people
Inexperienced.
They're now going into the EPA because all the experienced folks have left. Since this administration came into being, but that's another topic for discussion. But anyway, so they decided to respond to my letter, and instead they did not mention a word about the topic of the letter. They went straight into the parent company guarantee. Well, how stupid could you be to raise up that ant's nest? Because we all remember the beating that the government took in the case with the Judge Kissoon case, and calling them submissive and pliant and all kinds of things in with their relationship with Exxon. And of course, it brings up how they were betraying the people of Guyana by joining with Exxon against the people of Guyana, who want that to come up again, because those were factual. So guess what they come up and say? They said, oh no, Dr. Adams, nowhere in Dr. Adams is in the Leisure 2 permit, which is where this thing was first created. I demanded, Dr. Hines, you remember, I demanded that we must have full liability coverage to cover an oil spill.
Yeah.
And I told him, you will not produce a barrel of oil until I get that. That was the clear plain with Judge Kissoon described as. Judge Kissoon called that language plain, unambiguous language that leave no uncertainty as this ambiguity. That's quote from Judge Kissoon. But anyway, so they're saying that nowhere in that clause did this mention. But here is what is troubling and should be troubling to the people of Guyana. Here's an agency that the people depend upon for information to protect their health, safety, and the environment. So you got to believe them. You know what they did, Dr. Hines? In that same clause that everybody knew about, they decided to quote the clause to prove that it wasn't, that parent company guarantee was not in there. And you know what they did? They left out the last 9 words. That was the key to the parent company guarantee section. They quoted the first part, but the 9 words that addresses the parent company guarantee, they left it out. And just stop they stop, like when they stop up to the and then they put a couple dots and then put the codes. So it show, so that was my response, and I had to respond and bring everything back again. But it's the deeper part of that is I'm telling you, in let's say in the United States government where I worked, and an executive did something like that, they will be gone the next day. They'll be gone the next day. It's not just, you're doing it and you get away with it. So that's what I addressed there. And but we've got an EPA right now, Dr. Hines. It has gone back to exactly where it was before the coalition took office, and we thought within the short 20 months we'd brought it back to respectability. And we had a functional agency. We did not even have a file room, Dr. Hans, believe it or not. We did not even know how many operations we had out there. All of that was fixed. We set up 2 offices, to make sure, and we had a plan to set up an office in every region by 2021. All of that has been gone. We building capacity. You remember, I talked about the World Bank program that we had set up. We had set up an entire petroleum unit of 36-member unit with high-powered petroleum engineers and geological engineers that we were going to hire in 2020. Of course, there wasn't any budget in 2020 because of the election. We had a study leave program that we had set up where any student, any employee can apply to any university to do any course related to EPA, and we were going to pay for sponsor you, and then you come back and you serve for 5 years. They canceled all that. So now we do not have a single person at the EPA, Dr. Hines, who has a single hour in petroleum engineering, has nothing to do. So that is where this nonsense is coming from. We have no capacity. Nobody has any training whatsoever in the most important industry in this country. How could you fathom something like that, Dr. Hines? How could you fathom something like that? And then they come out now and spouting this nonsense, which is devious, because it would have been better if they were just basically didn't understand what the clause say. But when you see that they're leaving out words, you know that they understand the clause, and they're trying to deceive the Guyanese people. That is the problem. It is that deception, and they should have been held accountable and even removed to set an example. But this government will not do that because they do the same thing every single day. They don't do that. So that's what we're living with. That's what we're living with, unfortunately.
Yeah. Doc, I got the shock of my life last night. I didn't get to listen to or look at the vice president live yesterday because I was running up and down. So last night, when I was finished with my program and in chores, I settled down. And of course, part of it is entertainment and part of it is shock. But I get the shock of my life when I hear the vice president say that heads will roll for the lantern post. the lantern posts, them that fall down in South and Abbey Barker Road. And the reason I'm saying that, some heads should have been rolling for all kind of big, big, high class corruption and thievery that have gone on in this government, and not even the hair upon the head roll. And all of a sudden, Vice President Jack is telling us head will roll for them lantern posts that fall down. No, of course, the lantern posts that fall down there, they impact the safety of the people around there. So it's a serious matter. And by no means saying that it is not a serious matter and that should be investigated. But what the Vice President Jagdeo failed to understand is that their procurement practices are encouraging a certain kind of mediocre work. And so when you discover the mediocre work, you go now to the people who putting out the mediocre work, but you are absolving yourself. You, Jack, you're the origin of the mediocrity because of the way, the corrupt way you're engaging in procurement. Am I over the top here, my brother?
Oh, absolutely not. And he came up with this kind of crocodile tears to fake or to cover up the incompetencies of this government and their corrupt nature in terms of exactly what you were saying there, and who we now see where this $666 billion is going.
Yes.
Is 58%, by the way, 58% of all of Guyana's budget. That's where it's going. And then
of 1.2, where it gone now over 1.2 trillion.
Absolutely.
With the money that they take out here recently.
Absolutely. So that is where over half, close to 60%, listen to this, folks, over 60% of your national budget is going into infrastructure. That's the work that we're getting, okay? Besides all the other roads and stuff that we're seeing, they're calling it biscuit roads, where after a couple of days, it starts flaking up, and then they bring back the contractor, the friends again, to do another fix of similar type. But Dr. Hines, you talk about an embarrassment. Dr. Hines, even you don't even have got no training to know any post you put on, especially in that soft mud. You don't just stick that big heavy post in a soft mud without even putting something like concrete or digging. What you dig out the soft part of it to make sure you got a firm foundation, and then you pour cement or whatever it is. Whoever, then he gets up there, well, we got to hold them accountable. When have they ever held anybody accountable? Look, that 5:30 meeting, one guy got up there and said that he's got two companies bidding on the same contract. And all that the president said, but you got enough for Sanofi and ancestors, and just laugh it off and let it go. So who do they hold accountable at any time? And the person that should be held accountable is not only these guys who are the contractors. He's going to the contractors, is the people in charge. In any normal environment, like in the United States, for example, and I always got to go back there because that's what my career was. But it's the person at the top that is allowing that. The first question that would have been asked, how was this? Who made the mistake? Who hired? How did he or she got the contract? And then it starts. That's when it starts getting to the bottom of it as to how they got the contract. What was their qualification? What was on the big package in terms of the requirements for the qualification? It's the root cause. That's not the root cause with the contractor that he's getting. Are we going to fire the contractor? That is not the root cause. Even if it happened with one pole, Dr. Hines. One pole you could, but it's the all of the poles. But here's the other part that did not get the attention, which is of the similar consequences. Another because this took up the headline. In that same crew or whoever they were, when they were digging the holes. They dig into the pipeline.
Yes.
This,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
and then on top of that, they're running like 4 lanes of road. They didn't even move some of the pipes because you know the pipes will be the side of the road.
Yeah.
So now the pipe, they didn't even move the pipe in terms of planning how they're gonna, how they're gonna do. That's how you do stuff. Okay, you get all the parties involved, CWI, the electrical folk. First thing you gotta do, you gotta get a map with all the underground lines. You gotta locate them, and what you normally do, you mark it out with a paint line on top of the surface. So anybody who comes into work, this color here means it's electrical wire. This color means it's water. So whoever comes in there sees where these lines are running below ground. So you can't go in and dig up something and then you dig up a pipeline. So guess what is happening now, Dr. Hayes? So if you got a 4 lane road, the pipe that runs is ending up in the middle of the road. In the middle, let's say you got 2 lanes here and 2 lanes. It's ending up in the middle of the road. So that's the nonsensical stuff that is happening here. And then, what's so laughable? So the prime minister, my Christian Borg friend, so I
You don't
admire
go too
him.
hard on him. You don't go too hard on him. In deference, no, I got you.
He and I grew up in the same alley, so I'm proud of him. He accomplished a lot coming from there. So he goes out there to give, to represent the government, and he's on video. So one guy says, a guy who was standing by, guy, I don't know what the guy probably doesn't have any train, just a normal Joe. The guy said, sir, I was telling them since yesterday that this is what's going to happen. Guess what the prime minister told him? Said, well, this is 2020 vision. You should have tell him that. Now, what does this guy have to do? What is this? He's telling him that it was his role to tell the exports. And the prime minister just finished telling him, well, the exports are going to take care of that and fix the problem. And the guy said, well, chief, I was telling them that since yesterday. He said, well, that's 2020 vision. You should have basically make them change it. I mean, it's a comedy of errors, and we're seeing it every single day, and they're getting away with it. And then the vice president comes on and spouting a whole bunch of nonsense. He's going to hold people accountable, and he's apologizing and all kinds of stuff. It's incompetence in the whole ball of wax is how do they have these people doing this work? It's the people. It's the whole system of how these people who is doing the work and how they get, and not the people who's doing the work. It's those who are making the decision to have people who are unqualified and unprepared to do that work.
Dr. Vincent Adams.
And why they put people's lives at risk? We were lucky, Dr. Hines, with those wires, especially the charge and those poles. What would have happened if it was falling while, let's say that it was happening while people were coming from work or anything, and the streets were, full of cars, or it was busy, a busy time of the day. What the heck would have happened to those people? And it could have caused fire in houses.
Yes.
We just got to be thankful that kind of lucky that nothing very serious happened.
Dr. Vincent Adams here on a Friday night, touching on a range of issues tonight. It's close to Christmas, but the politics don't go away, and so really a range of issues. Doc, as we close out, but I'm going to see you on Sunday to talk with it. But by the time we come back here next week, Friday, Christmas will be gone. Here is your chance to spread joy, Christmas, joy to the world.
Joy to the world. I envy the folks in the warm weather back. Well, of course, I know you've got warm weather up in your neck of the woods. But we are not as bad as up in the Northeast in New York, where it's a little bit colder than here. But we are okay. But I always envy folks who are back home at Christmas time, especially them. When they tell me, well, we going back home, I said, oh, geez, you don't have to tell me. But have a Merry Christmas. There is hope. Don't keep hope alive.
Keep hope alive.
Next year is gonna be probably one of the biggest years in Guyana's history. Um, you've seen what we've been going through in the past 4 years, and you've seen what happened in the 4 years before without any oil money, by the way. So you've seen the 4 years before without money, and the 4 years after oil money, and you've got a lot of information to pass judgment. And please, take it seriously, and hopefully next year, by the end of the year, there will even be more hope for our future. So I want to wish all Guyanese, especially my Christianborg folks, Linden and Christianborg, all the best for Christmas and the New Year, and look forward to probably being in that area sometime soon.
Sometime soon, Dr. Vincent Adams. Thank you very much, my brother.
Same to you.
And to the rest of you, this weekend, I know you're all going to shop through. As we said, don't shop till you drop. Shop enough, but shop smartly. It's Christmas. We don't want to take the shopping out of Christmas. But this hyper commercialism is not always the most effective way to run our economics. But shop we must. So I'm going to see you all back on Monday. I think we're going to go up to Monday. We may go up to Tuesday, Christmas Eve day. We'll see. But we are definitely going to be back on Monday. So spend the weekend, do what you got to do, prepare, buy them blind. Nowadays, you also curtains, buy up the blind and whatever else you have to do, because we are not going to allow the frustrations of the Guyana government or the frustrations that are visited on us by the Guyana government to prevent us from having a good time at Christmas. So thank you all very much for another week of Politics 101, and I'm going to see you all back on Monday. Thank you.